Hey Kaitlynn, this is Dr. Scott. I have some feedback for you on your Essay 2, your visual analysis draft. Quick reminder of things that I'm looking for, and I'm taking a look at the rubric right now for the assignment. I'm looking at your thesis statement, whether or not it's focused. It has strong supporting reasons that back up that thesis statement. I'm looking for supporting details in the body paragraph, so using details to back up what you have to say, and then explaining how those details back up what you have to say, or what you're trying to argue in the paper. Also looking at organization and transitions, and also paraphrase, using a couple of paraphrases. Then there's other criteria that are less important than the others I've just mentioned. So I think I kind of want to focus mostly on thesis and supporting details, because I think that's kind of where you're at right now, is figuring out exactly what you're trying to argue in this paper, and then making sure that you're using details to back up what it is that you're trying to argue. We can talk about organization and transitions after your little bit needs to be done to kind of get this essay on the right track. So when I look at the thesis statement, I see it down here, and I'm like, okay, hope and strength, cool. Like, it's pretty clear, like, what message about the two murals that you want to write about, hope and strength. I wonder, though, if you're actually writing about both, because I read a lot about hope. I didn't necessarily read a lot about strength. It seemed like you had more to say about that, and I actually think cutting strength out, it actually helps focus what it is you're writing about, and I think it makes it easier for you to write. So instead of like trying to write an essay where like, okay, I have to talk about both of these, I think, you kind of just focus on one. So if hope is something you want to write about, that's great. If strength is something you want to write about, that's awesome. I don't know if the two are necessarily coming together. So that's one bit of feedback. The other thing to kind of think about with the thesis statement is that it's perfectly fine to say, they're trying to get this message across about hope. I think that one mural did that better than another. I think that is kind of a fair assessment. It's kind of like the film review. I mean, there's some things that are great about it. There's other things that, hey, maybe they could have done a better job, or maybe it was just less effective. So I think figuring out exactly what it is you want to argue about, that's for step one. Step two, how is that message of hope or strength, how is that actually conveyed? And that needs to be part of the thesis statement. So it's like the two murals I received a message about, or I received a message about hope from the 1937 and Chillicothe Street mural through the use of this thing, and you write about color, you write about color and the actions depicted in the murals. Like, you write a lot about like what people are actually doing, and I see a fair bit of writing about color. And the one thing I really love about your draft is that you do a pretty solid job of describing things. Like, you have pretty strong descriptive details throughout your writing. The thing is, like, I'm not always sure like what that description is being used for. So in this paragraph, it's about just one of the murals, and it kind of falls into that trap where you're like, all right, the 1937 flood mural, I'm going to write about this thing, and then it ends up just kind of being about the mural itself and not the bigger argument that you're trying to get across. So I do think that the murals need to come together in your paragraphs. So if you're writing about color, talk about both murals and how both murals get that idea of hope across. If you're writing about the actions depicted in the murals, that's great. Talk about how the actions get across the idea of hope in both the 37 flood and the Chillicothe Street mural. That's a kind of a big thing to work on. There's a lot to do in order to address that feedback, but I think that is a very important step that you need to take in your essay. Making sure that the paragraphs are talking about both murals, clarifying what exactly the paragraphs are going to talk about, using details to support what it is you have to say, and then finally explaining how those details connect to that paragraph's overall point. So if you've got a paragraph about color, and you use, let's see if we can find a place. The middle of the mural is very bright compared to the rest of the mural. Outside is very dark brown. It flows, telling a story of distress. Okay, so pretty good. If hope is part of, if hope is like the overall argument that you're going through, I think that's fine to show us like, this is how bad things were. Then very next, I think shortly after that, it should be, there's this other thing that brings the hope. So, again, if hope is the focus of the paper, or if strength is the focus of the paper, I think you need to kind of make sure that you explain how the details get across that idea of hope or strength. So that's a lot to deal with. There's a lot to work on. The one thing that you have that's definitely going for you, you have a framework, and it's here. So you have a choice to make between hope and strength. I think you need to kind of decide the how. How does that hope or strength idea, how does it conveyed? Well, maybe color, maybe action. There's other things that you write about in your essay. There are other things that you can kind of add here. Color, so you have a paragraph about that, maybe a paragraph about that, and you're talking about both murals in the paragraph and using good detail, that great detail that you have in your essay to support what it is you have to say about color or actions and how they convey hope or strength. All right. Let me go to the end here. So kind of recap, decide hope and strength. I'm not sure if both of them are going to work. If you think they can, we can talk about that, but I think you kind of need to choose one. Identify how the murals get the idea of hope or strength across. So is it the use of color? Is it the actions that they depict? Is it the use of shading, the use of darkness and lightness? There's a few different ways that you can write about that. Identify how the murals get the idea of hope or strength across. And then you use details from the murals to support your ideas, and then take that extra step of explaining how those details help your argument. I see you do that in a couple places. You need to make it much more consistent. And I think that comes from kind of figuring out this first step. What exactly do you want this essay to be about? It's going to be a lot easier for you to tie your details to an argument when you know what the argument is. All right, Kaitlynn. That's a lot. So if you have questions, let me know. But I'm really proud of you for this draft. I think you've got a good start here, and I'm happy to help you get it to the next step. All right, I'll talk to you soon.